Welcome back to The Green. I'm Tom Byrne. Living on opposite sides of the world wasn't a barrier for a Delaware MC and a producer from Ireland when it came to creating their new project. The duo High Elders say the world's a lot smaller thanks to the internet, and that's how Wilmington's Gentle Jones and Carlo Ireland's Auxiliary Phoenix were able to craft their new 11-track effort, Forest of Pencils. Gentle Jones is the stage name of First State native Bill Farrell, a network technician for the Delaware Division of Libraries. His tech-savvy skills were developed as a teenage musician who wanted to learn how to release his music over the internet. Since then, he's dabbled in punk rock and fronted a popular ska band, but his true musical passion is hip-hop. This week, in our arts playlist, Delaware Public Media's Kathy Carter talks to Gentle Jones about Delaware's rich hip-hop history, how the genre is evolving, and High Elders' place in expanding its boundaries.
Firmly rooted in hip-hop, but with elements of electronic experimentation and even progressive rock, High Elders isn't easy to categorize. You could call it alt-rap with some jazz and even pop sensibilities thrown in. Musicians tend to shun labels, but Gentle Jones is okay with calling High Elders experimental hip-hop.
Well, it's absolutely hip-hop if you look at the format, the fact that I do rap. I consider myself an MC. And further than that, I would say it is experimental. I do try to look forward where music is going. You know, I have my own personal tastes. I listen to the radio, and I listen to albums which are not on the radio. And some of my favorite artists are people who are generally unsung. I don't put much stock in what's happening on the top 40 because it tends to be trendy, and it comes and goes. And if you want to make something that's going to last, you've kind of got to be blind to the fashions and be forward-thinking and be yourself, be an individual. You know, and being a human being is experimental. Every day we wake up, we don't know what the heck we're doing, just trying to figure it out.
Gentle Jones has released 10 albums since he began recording music on a 4-track tape recorder as a teenager. He's been involved in Delaware's music scene for years and is a bit of a historian when it comes to the state's rich hip-hop history.
Delaware's hip-hop history goes all the way back to the beginning, all the way back to the Golden Age, way before anyone that I know was actually actively recording music around here. And then people started releasing albums. Actually, in the 80s, you saw vinyl records come out. Guys like Disco Beeve, Doc D and Cut Wiz, Grand G with the Project X, all the way up until the early 90s, and Cage One from Newark. And these are records that were pressed only in the thousands, you know, a very small run. But to this day, over in Europe and London and even Japan, they command really high prices if you can find one. They're rare as hen's teeth, but I've seen one of Grand G's albums, the Project X album, which came out, I believe, in '90, sell for thousands of dollars to a guy in London. Cage One, which is from the Newark Bear area, they put out a record that eventually made its way out to Japan. Disco Beeve later on with his album From the Projects, which came out before these records but was discovered much later by the international community. There are a lot of people that put out a physical product that stands head and shoulders above a lot that came out at their time. They were equal to their contemporaries.
The First State's hip-hop pedigree may not be as recognized as better-known scenes in Philadelphia or New York City, but Jones says some of those early Delaware musical pioneers are appreciated around the world.
The international crate-digging community, they have a certain taste that leans towards a very traditional, or what they call a golden age, hip-hop sound. And Delaware, just being a short trip from New York City, and Philly and Baltimore around us, we've been in the thick of it the entire time. Run DMC used to come perform in Wilmington, Bismarcky. I mean, we've just been exposed to it and been actively a part of it. So I think the professionalism of the records, the style is just a pure musical, make music, have fun. And I think that's what people really gravitate towards. It's becoming more and more rare as we move into, you know, the new era of music and things splitting off into so many subgenres. People like to trace it back to the root, and Delaware's roots go all the way back to the beginning.
With an eye to the past but a desire to expand hip-hop's boundaries, Gentle Jones found a like-minded partner in producer James Strain, better known by his musical stage name, Auxiliary Phoenix.
He's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays bass, he plays guitar, he plays keys, he plays drums. He just brings together disparate elements and genres, and he has his own sound, and it's exciting. And when I listen to music, I look for inspiration. My favorite thing is taking a new record out the wrapper or something I've never heard, somebody who's got their own style and just being submerged in it. Maybe sometimes the first thought is, what in the world am I listening to? Your mind gets blown, or just a new novel idea. And that just gets the juices flowing for me.
For High Elder's Forest of Pencils project, Auxiliary Phoenix would create the beats and the cuts and then send the files to Gentle Jones.
Then what I would do, my personal writing process is actually I burn a CD and ride around in the car. And it probably looks like I'm talking to myself up and down Route 1, but that's where I do a lot of my writing, and I just listen. And I find that the most rewarding writing that I've done has not been with an idea that I've been sitting on, germinating, waiting for a place to put it, but rather when I'm listening to music and I'm in a moment and there's just a seed of something that inspires me or delights me or that I think is funny, and I just go from there. So with a lot of the music I've done with Auxiliary Phoenix is absolutely just, I listen to the music, I get a feeling, and the songs kind of write themselves.
Dreams with Mephistopheles, thoughts lost atop the trees. When the devil dances with you, you dance until the tune is through. Dreams with Mephistopheles, thoughts lost atop the trees. When the devil dances with you, you dance until the tune is through.
The Forest of Pencils album has 11 tracks and was released as a digital download and cassette in December through Little L Records. Jones considers it his best work and points to the song Churches as a favorite for its exploration of spiritual themes.
Is it a philosophical institution? Is it a social institution? Is it a charity institution? There are just a lot of roles that it plays, but more and more it seems to be an old-fashioned concept. But if it falls entirely out of fashion, then where does that part of our humanity that for how many thousands of years have cobbled it together, where does that direction of thought go? Where do those sensitivities go? I don't know. But I think it's something that ties us together, whether folks are Christians or Muslims or Jewish or Buddhists or whatever. There's an old saying that says there's one truth and many paths to it.
All the people in the churches across the earth's surface wonder what is life's purpose. Is it all even worth it? Or are we already perfect? I don't know. I've never been to heaven, but I sure been close. God is in the party, his body is just a host. And I'm feeling the Holy Ghost. So I propose a toast to everything you love most, and to all these other folks and the roads that they chose.
Elsewhere, High Elders takes a more playful tone on deep thoughts with the first single, Surrounded by Light.
I felt like the music had kind of a transcendent, out-of-the-body feeling without sounding too mystical. And I imagined an airline pilot flying, and you've heard stories probably, UFO sightings, people seeing things that they don't understand. And what if one of these guys really did encounter an alien? Would he understand what he was looking at? What would that feeling be like? And I wanted to kind of write a song that gave you that out-of-body, I'm surrounded by something amazing and wonderful. And then also it gave me an opportunity to say things like, I can't feel my body. That stuff cracks me up. But it was a lot of fun. And when I sent it over to James, he was like, wow, what is this?
Pilot to tower, can you confirm that I'm on radar? I'm experiencing phenomena. I'm going to try to explain. This might sound strange. our flight. Middle of the night, a glorious sight. I'm surrounded by lights, gave me a fright. I think I'm alright, hold tight. I'm surrounded by lights that look like fireflies and turn into fireworks. I'm surrounded by lights that look like fireworks and turn into flowers, that look like flowers and turn into eagles, turned into 12-dimensional alien people that looked into my heart, so I was their equal. It feels wonderful. Can you hear me? I can't feel my body.
Gentle Jones does do gigs in Delaware and occasionally nationally, even shows in Europe. And there is talk of High Elders doing some shows in 2015. And while he won't be leaving his professional gig anytime soon, the MC says he'll always make music. It's in his blood.
I come from a musical family. My mother and father met in Delaware, where they lived as teenagers. But before that, my father was born in West Virginia. And his father, my grandfather, he played the fiddle, played the banjo, played piano, and I grew up singing in church. I have my grandfather's fiddle. I play fiddle. And that's something that always impressed me growing up, was just the jubilation of being together and singing songs. You know, many decades ago, it was common for a family to have a piano in the parlor, and that's how they would entertain each other, you know, before television, before radio. And I feel like that's a tradition that we've got to pass down, because if we just allow it to be commercialized, and it kind of takes some of the soul out of it. It is an ancient institution also, you know, the way we tell our stories and we celebrate together and enjoy each other's company. And that's always driven me in my songwriting, is to not just create things that I think are interesting or novel, but to express myself, what it is that I want to say.
My uncle plays the accordion every night and flies like a maiden.
Why, does he play sad music?
No, the accordion keeps pinching his stomach.
You do look pale. Are you a poor sailor?
No, I'm a rich stockbroker.
No?
I've come to change my name.
That'll be an expensive business. What is your name?